entitled In the Shadow, From the Shadow, the Principal as a Reflective Practitioner. I am Laurette Bristol, and I am the President of the Catholic College of Mandeville. I am also Dr. Talia Esnard, Assistant Professor of the University of Trinidad and Tobago.
I'm Dr. Launcelot Brown, Chair of the Department of Educational Foundations and Leadership at Duquesne University.
This particular journal was referred to me during a conversation that I had with another colleague who is part of a mentoring network and who mentioned this journal as a possible outlet for research on educational leadership. I brought this to the attention of my colleagues, Dr. Bristol and Dr. Brown, in relation to work that we started on educational leadership in the Caribbean, where we had at least 12, on average, cases of principals who are in the practice of leading. When we looked at the journal and the scope of the journal, we thought that journal was quite suitable for what we were doing, and also an excellent outlet publishing a case from the Caribbean that presented a unique perspective as well as an instructive example of leading and reflecting while leading.
Well, the question, how can teachers or trainers best utilize this case? I look at it from two perspectives. I look at it from the fact that teachers themselves, we always emphasize that teachers should reflect on their teaching, etc., but we hardly ever put emphasis on the leader being a reflective practitioner. I think this case is a good example of the kind of leadership which is really necessary within the context of Trinidad and Tobago. Because here we had a principal being not only an instructional leader in the sense that she was really looking at things like curriculum, etc., but more importantly is how she was actually reflecting on her own leadership style and her own leadership behaviors, and how she was able to use that reflection to then say, what can we do better as a school, and bring the teachers on board. Because one of the things you learn quickly, and what the literature talks about, is how do you get teachers to buy in, to be part of the decision making or the design of whatever happens in the school, and she did that.
Why should readers or practitioners go to JCL and use this case? My argument would be that what this journal offers to practitioners and to readers is applied knowledge. It is a conversation where theory is turned into lived practices in social sites such as education. It allows, through this particular case, the reader and the practitioner to reflect on actions and activities, and actions here being the sayings, the language discourses within sites, the doings, which are the material economic arrangements within sites, and the relatings in terms of how these material economic arrangements as well as the language discourses serve to form and foster particular kinds of social relationships in and between and among people. And the ways in which we can use these social arrangements within sites to engineer school transformation and enhance student outcomes. So it is not an application, it is not an abstraction of ideas, but it's the application of abstract ideas and ensuring that it's lived in practice and through practice. I think when we think about the particular points in the case that ought to be part of teaching deliberations, and in this context, we're talking about how do we go about preparing leaders for leading and not necessarily leaders for leadership. Moving from the disposition orientation of which is the dominant discourse within the field of leadership, but actually paying attention to the practice, which is the lived experience of leading and leadership. And I think, like Dr. Brown has said, the important point of deliberation here is the whole notion of the reflective practitioner, leaders as reflective
reflective practitioners. Because quite often we work really hard and in a sustained effort to ensure that teachers become reflective practitioners. And there is this unwritten assumption that leaders don't or may not need to reflect as constantly as teachers would. But when we talk about creating schools that are socially just, creating educational sites that are empowering, it becomes absolutely necessary that leaders engage in reflective practice.